All right, let's dive into one of the most critical moments in American history, a time when a single election literally cracked the nation in half, pitting brother against brother and changing the country forever.
So the big question is how? How did one election cause such a massive unraveling? Well, today we're going to get to the bottom of it. And here's the key. We're going to use the words of the people who actually made the decision to secede. No modern spin, just their own justifications. Let's get into it.
Okay, so to really understand how Abraham Lincoln won in 1860, you first have to realize that his main opposition, the Democratic Party, was an absolute mess. This party, which had been a political juggernaut, had basically ripped itself in two over one single issue. And that issue was the expansion of slavery. On one side, you had the Northern Democrats, led by Stephen Douglas. Their big idea was popular sovereignty. Basically, let the settlers in new territories vote for themselves on whether to allow slavery. But on the other side, the Southern Democrats, with John Breckinridge, said, no way. They demanded that the federal government protect slavery in all the territories, period. With the Democrats split like this, they essentially handed the election to the Republicans.
And that Republican victory came in the form of one man, Abraham Lincoln. His election wasn't just a political loss for the South, it was a political earthquake that sent shockwaves across the entire region, because his platform was seen as a direct threat to their entire way of life.
Now, here's the crucial detail. Lincoln ran on what was called a free soil platform. He was very clear that his goal was not to abolish slavery where it already existed. His whole focus was just on stopping it from spreading into the new Western territories. But in the South, even that was seen as completely radical and unacceptable.
And this number. Wow. This number tells you everything you need to know about the political divide in 1860. 0. That's how many electoral votes Abraham Lincoln got from the South. He wasn't even on the ballot in most southern states. Think about that. A man won the presidency without the support of an entire region of the country. For the South, this was a disaster.
So for Southern leaders, this result meant one thing and one thing only. Their power in the United States was gone, for good. It wasn't just about losing an election. They saw it as a sign that the nation's political gravity had shifted entirely away from them, threatening the very foundation of their society and their economy.
And their reaction wasn't just to write angry letters. Nope. They took immediate, decisive action. And it all happened with a speed that is just stunning, starting only weeks after the election, long before Lincoln even took the oath of office.
Just look at how fast the dominoes fell. South Carolina was out the door in December 1860. Then, over the next 6 weeks, bam, 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 6 more states followed. It was a full-blown cascade, a rapid and very deliberate unraveling of the country.
As they left the Union, they created a new nation, the Confederate States of America. And their new Constitution tells you everything. Sure, it limited the power of the federal government, but here's the kicker. It explicitly protected the institution of slavery forever. They wrote it into the Constitution that it could never be abolished. They wanted to make it permanent.
Which brings us right back to that core question. Why did they do it? Well, the best way to find out is to stop guessing and go right to the source, the official documents the states published for the entire world to see.
And this is the amazing part. We don't have to speculate. We don't have to read between the lines. The states that seceded wrote these formal documents, often called declarations of causes, where they laid out in black and white exactly why they were leaving the Union. So let's take a look.
Let's start with Texas. Their declaration says they are leaving, in part because the federal government was promoting what they called the debasing doctrine of the equality of all men, irrespective of race or color. The language is just incredibly stark. They are tying their departure directly to preventing racial equality.
Okay, now let's jump over to South Carolina, the first state to secede. Their declaration is framed in constitutional arguments, but it's focused like a laser on one thing: slavery. They outright state their fear that the new Republican government will wage a war against slavery until it shall cease. The threat they saw couldn't be more explicit.
But Mississippi might just be the most direct of all. There's zero ambiguity here. They wrote, "Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world." I mean, it is just impossible to read that and think this was mostly about taxes or tariffs.
Now, if those state declarations somehow weren't clear enough, the vice president of the brand new Confederacy, a man named Alexander Stephens, gave a speech that laid out the entire ideological foundation for their new government.
So in March of 1861, Stevens gives this major address in Savannah, Georgia. It's since become known as the Cornerstone Speech, and for good reason. In it, he literally defines the cornerstone, the fundamental truth on which the Confederacy was built.
And this is what he said. He claimed the old U.S. government was wrong because it was founded on the idea of human equality. By contrast, he said, the Confederacy's cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition.
Just let that sink in. What Stevens is doing here is making it clear this isn't just about protecting an economic system. He's framing white supremacy and slavery as the central moral and philosophical truth of their new nation. It wasn't just an interest, it was their core ideology.
So, when you put it all together, you have the political panic after Lincoln's win, you have the states themselves putting it in writing over and over that this is about slavery, and then you have the Confederate vice president himself spelling out the entire ideology for everyone to hear. The conclusion from their own words is pretty inescapable.
Which really just leaves us with a final question for you to think about. After hearing these incredibly clear, unambiguous statements from the people who actually made these decisions, how does this evidence impact your understanding of why the Civil War happened? It's a heavy question, but one worth considering. Thanks for joining us.